Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. The execution of the 1993 Mumbai blast convict Yaqub Memon, after some dramatic late night and early morning developments this morning, has brought back into focus the debate on death penalty. While discussing the merits or demerits of the Yaqub Memon case now may be futile, the issue of whether death penalty should continue or not is a live issue. Awarding of death penalty in India is pretty common. According to the National Crime Records Bureau, between 2004 and 2013, 1,303 verdicts awarded death penalty to convicts. However, only 4 have been executed, including Yaqub Memon this morning from 2004. The 3 others were Dhananjoy Chatterjee, Mohammad Ajmal Amir Kasab, and Mohammad Afzal Guru. Incidentally, there are many laws in India under which there are provisions for death penalty. There are 22 legislations under which death penalty can be awarded for hundreds of offences, including a sentry sleeping in time of war at his post or even if intoxicated, under the Army Act of 1950. One of the main arguments in favour of death penalty is that it acts as a deterrent and therefore should be retained. On the other hand, opponents of it have their own set of arguments for its abolition. By the way, 36 countries actively practice capital punishment. 103 countries have completely abolished it de jure for all crimes. 6 have abolished it for ordinary crimes only, while maintaining it for special circumstances such as war crimes. And 50 have abolished it de facto. That is, they have not used it for 10 years or more under a moratorium. We will discuss today the pros and cons of death penalty and see if it has really been a deterrent in India. To discuss this, I have with me Vinay Sahasrabudhe, National Vice President of the BJP, Anup Surendranath, Director, Death Penalty Research Project at the National Law University, Delhi, Ashok Tandon, Senior Journalist, and Anil K. Agarwal, Advocate in the Supreme Court. Welcome to all of you. Anup, I would like to come to you first. You're doing it's a very interesting project from the last couple of years, I think so. So have you come to the end of the project? Are the report ready, or do you have some? What is it that you have found so far?
Yeah, so we've finished interviewing all of India's death row prisoners between June 2013 and January 2015, and we've tracked.
How many of them?
There are 385 of them.
385 death row prisoners across the country.
Yes, and the numbers might have changed since we finished interviewing them, but it's in that range.
Okay.
And we've tracked down each of their families, and we've tried interviewing as many of their defense lawyers as possible. So the idea was to try and see who gets the death penalty in India. What is the socio-economic profile of death row prisoners, and what is their experience in our criminal justice system, with police, with investigation, with trial, with legal aid, with the appellate procedures. What is their experience? And this was the idea with which we did the project in collaboration with the National Legal Services Authority. Yes, and we are in the process of releasing volume 1 of our report in the second week or third week of August. And yes, the findings are not surprising, I would say. I think this is what people always thought it would be, but we now have empirical evidence of it, that a large number of them are extremely poor, very low levels of educational attainment. A large number of them belong to lower castes and religious minorities. And these are not very surprising results.
Why are you saying it's not surprising?
Because this is true of all retentionist countries where the death penalty is there, that it goes to the poorest, it goes to the most socially marginalized. They have terrible experiences with the criminal justice system. And people have always suspected this of India, except that this is the first study of its kind to go out there and get the proof for that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Vinayji, see, in the last few days, there was this crescendo, which built into a crescendo as far as Yaqub Memon is concerned, which is why we are discussing this larger issue. But what you heard from Anup, does it surprise you?
Well, yes and no,
because the socio-economic profile of these people.
But this is true in case of most of the crimes. Why only people who are facing death penalty? I mean, people of other penalties as well are coming from the socially marginalized kind of sections. I would only propose that let us take the discussion at a serious level. Let us be a little more mature while discussing the things. Let us not find out some simplistic solutions to these things.
No, we're not trying to find a solution, we're trying to find the problem.
What I'm trying to suggest here is that people who are not in favor of abolition of death penalty need not be painted as those who are anti-humanitarianism or they believe in barbaric law. Things are not like that. But when you say for example, I mean, do we believe in element of deterrence? Is that the core of our criminal jurisprudence system? Even in the management science today, they talk about reward and punishment. So if punishment is there, because the death penalty debate could be stretched too far, any kind of penalty for that matter. It has been said, and people have been quoting this, that to err is human, to forgive is divine. So if we have to go by that, let us abolish all our judicial system and everything. Because to forgive is divine. But things are not that simple. There need be no
punishment at all.
Sorry?
There need be no punishment.
Yeah, of course. And it can be stretched that far. I mean, why not? Why only people who are facing death penalty? Because to put a person behind the bars itself is barbaric. Itself is inhuman.
So what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say?
I am trying to say that there are arguments, significant and strong arguments on both the sides. Let us have a look into them in a very dispassionate manner.
You think that
Let us not rush to draw simplistic conclusions.
We are not drawing simplistic. So do you think that death penalty can be a deterrent? That is the question.
I believe so.
You believe
Unless we find a different alternative which is superior to this.
Okay.
Which is better than this.
Okay. Prashant Bhushan. We are now joined by Prashant Bhushan, the well-known lawyer and activist. Prashant, the main argument as far as retaining death penalty is that it's a deterrent. And my panelist here in the studio, Mr. Sasarupudde of the BJP, thinks that it is a deterrent. It has been, and many people also agree with him. So when we talk of death penalty, the issue of deterrence is the key factor, or you think there are any other key factors?
No, in my view, and in fact, in the view of more than 130 countries which have abolished the death penalty, it is no greater deterrent than life imprisonment. Most of the people to whom the punishment of death penalty is inflicted are supposed to be hardened terrorists. Many of them are suicide terrorists.
Right.
For them, whether you are put to death or whether you are put to life imprisonment does not add to your to the deterrence. But you see, that's not the main argument against death penalty. The main argument against death penalty is precisely what we are seeing in our society today in the case of this Yaqub Memon. This kind of lynch mob mentality that we are seeing around his hanging, where the government is also baying for his blood, where a lot of people are baying for his blood and saying, hang him now, it should not wait even for 2 weeks, he should be hanged immediately. This is the kind of propensity of retributive violence which is created in a society which has death penalty. Because death penalty is a form of retributive violence by the state, and it promotes this lynch mob mentality, where people have this bloodlust, bloodthirst to kill the person, hang him publicly, and so on. This is not good for any society, and that is why virtually all civilized countries have abolished death penalty in the world.
Prashant, the argument is that, if you don't give this kind of punishment to a person who indulges in heinous crimes against a large number of people, then justice is not done.
It's not, the idea of punishment is not retributive justice. That only leads to this propensity in a society that you start baying for people's blood. You start this lynch mob mentality is the consequence of retributive justice. That's not the main object of punishment. The main object of punishment is deterrence. And in my view, death penalty is no greater deterrence to these kind of hardened terrorists who are supposed to be given death penalty than life imprisonment. It
Okay.
doesn't substantially add to any kind of deterrence.
Okay.
And the third argument against it is, the third argument against death penalty is that it can sometimes be given to the wrong person, to an innocent person, and leads to such irreversible miscarriage of justice because you can't bring back the person to life. Sometimes facts are discovered later which show that the evidence against that person was cooked up, fabricated. This has happened in America recently to more than 400 death row prisoners against whom evidence has later surfaced which show that they were innocent.
Yes, very quickly. First, Mr. Sahasrabudhe.
No,
I have to come to
I would
Ashok
say
Khanna.
that to whatever happened yesterday, I mean, if Yaqub Memon case is in point, I believe the way the Supreme Court handled the subject, the way even midnight all the judges sat together and then decided about the case and then gave their verdict in a very responsible manner. I believe to call it a lynch mob mentality itself is
I don't think
kind
he's
of an insult of our judicial system.
I don't think he called the judicial system lynch mob mentality, but
when the
general atmosphere is he's talking of the general atmosphere.
Thing was handled going by the
we
book.
will not get into that specific case now.
No, but
anyway,
simply labeling certain things is very irresponsible.
No, it's not just in this case. He's talking of the larger issue. Anup, very quickly.
No, I just quickly want to make 2 points. I think the death penalty is a very different punishment from normal imprisonment. A person who lives on death row, that swinging between life and death every day, that experience is very different from when I ask you to go to jail for 10 years. I think that needs to be understood, that the death penalty is a very different punishment. Now, if the idea is that there must be deterrence, and the idea is that is the death penalty a cruel and inhuman punishment because of this experience, not just of killing, it is of this experience of being on death row, then why don't we have public flogging, public stoning? All of that are worse punishments.
Go back to the medieval ages.
Yes, and one wrongful conviction case, and as Prashant Bhushan said, certainly that several examples in America, but we don't need to go as far as America. A very recent case in the Indian Supreme Court in the Akshardham attack case, where Adam Bhai Ajmeri and 2 others were acquitted after being on death row for 8 years and spent a total of 11 years in prison, and the Supreme Court there made it very explicit that they were framed. That it is not just it's not just.
So we have an example right here, Ashok Tandon, retributive justice. You know, this is
even in the Parliament attack case.
Even in the Parliament attack case, absolutely, retributive justice and lynch mob mentality. It encourages lynch mob mentality.
Girish, first of all, I have very serious reservations that the death penalty issue is discussed only when there is a hanging, which is very unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. That's how it is.
No, but these are two different issues. See, the death penalty, merits and demerits should be discussed when there is no hanging. Why? Because when there is a hanging, the whole issue gets politicized.
Absolutely.
Which unfortunately happened in the last 3 previous occasions also.
No, but somebody like Anup Surendranath has been carrying on
let
this
him do it.
project for the last 2 years.
But
people don't take note of it unless something like this happens.
That is the sad part. That's the sad part of our media.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't discuss this issue on its merits when there is no hanging.
I agree with that.
Because what Prashant Bhushan is trying to say is, because we are discussing today this issue in view of a hanging which took place today. Now, having said that, let me come to the point. You and Prashant Bhushan both have given some statistics. You know, Mr. Prashant Bhushan, 60% of the population of the globe, which constitutes India, China, America, Indonesia, are practicing...
And US.
And US, of course, are practicing death penalty. So don't say that 135 countries have abolished it. 60% of the human population still practices.
So is that the justification?
No, it's not a justification. After all, the law enacted in these countries and also in the earlier countries which have abolished was an evolutionary process. It did not find mention in the penal code just overnight.
No,
see, the kind of society we had, in their wisdom, those who framed law thought it prudent to include death penalty in the statute books. Now, if you want to abolish it, it has to be a gradual process, an evolutionary process
this
also.
Is part of the evolutionary process.
Let me say that. The United Nations, in the last 4 occasions, have adopted resolutions against death penalty, but these are not binding. India has been voting against
Right.
abolition of death penalty.
Along with US, Japan, China and all.
No, why I'm saying is, so therefore let there be a healthy debate on this issue, and if the societies in their wisdom feel that the time has come to abolish it, let it be an evolutionary process. Don't
Absolutely.
force it.
No,
And don't
nobody's
give an
forcing it.
argument.
This is an evolutionary process, I think.
No,
This is part of the
that is
debate.
why the United Nations have been giving time to the countries
Okay.
to think about it and take a decision. Similarly, in India, the debate on this issue should
continue and should not stop in the
it
next.
should take place only when there is no hanging.
When there is no hanging. Okay, fine. That's a good point there. Mr. Agarwal, one major question is this. The death penalty jurisprudence, as far as death penalty jurisprudence is concerned in India, has it been consistent?
No,
I would like
actually-
this question to be
actually, what we have
answered by
forgotten-
Prashant also.
But we are forgetting about is that this death penalty is not evolved out of our own democratic process. It is the thing that was given to us by the...
It's a colonial...
No,
it's a
I said
colonial hangover.
evolutionary process in the societies,
No,
not
I
of
am
any
talking
particular
about that,
country.
That our democratic institution like parliament and other institutions which are legislative, have the legislative power, they reflect the mandate of the people. That reflection of the mandate of the people is not there. The people opinion is not reflecting in that legislation which was enacted prior to our independence. So we should have a debate on this in our legislature, and public opinion should be compelling the legislature to come to a conclusion
Sorry to
whether to
interrupt
continue
you.
with it or not.
Whenever there is a rape, the first slogan raised on the streets is "Hang the man, hang the man." What are you talking
that is
about
not-
it?
that is
You're
not-
talking
no,
about public
that is
opinion.
not reflecting the public
opinion in
opinion.
India is in favor of death penalty for
I will
those who
still
are
say, I will still say
that rape.
that people who are
How do you say that public opinion is
No,
against?
public opinion
Take a
can
vote.
be people
Take a vote
shouting
on
on
the
the
rape
street.
issue.
I will differ on this.
90% people
Then
will
Ashok-
say hang the man.
Sir, I will
Ashok,
differ on this because...
Okay, Anil Agarwal, yes, please stick to the point.
Actually, what I'm saying is that the mob which is coming on the roads, raising slogans, does not reflect the opinion of the people.
They are the victims.
If that
They are the
happens,
victims. They reflect the victims.
no,
No, Ashok, one second.
that does not even reflect the victim. What is happening is that...
Mr. Agarwal, my question was this. What about the jurisprudence of death penalty in India? Has it been consistent?
It has been consistent, but you see, despite having provision for death penalty, as you have said, we have hanged only 3% prior to Yaqub. So the
last
death
10 years.
penalty were awarded in number of cases, more than 1,300 cases. So why we have not been able to punish them in the way the judicial decision was given? So why we have changed it and commuted it to the life imprisonment then? So that is also reflecting what is the requirement of the people's opinion is.
So, yes, Anup.
I would
know about the jurisprudence.
Yes, I would disagree with Mr. Agarwal there that the rarest of rare doctrine has completely broken down in this country. And it's very well documented that even in the Supreme Court, there is a very exhaustive study of Supreme Court cases between 1950 to 2006, which demonstrates that the Supreme Court itself has not applied the standards in death penalty consistently. And our research shows that this is much worse. This problem is much worse when you go into the trial courts. Of every 100 death sentences that the trial courts have given in this country for the last 15 years, only 4.5% are finally upheld. And of that 100, 30% are acquitted.
So there is certain cavalier manner in which this death penalty is
It is
awarded.
not a maintainable standard. It is not a judicially maintainable standard because there are no guidelines. So much depends on the predilection of individual judges. That is why it is called a lethal lottery, and that's all it is.
Prashant?
I would like to add here.
I'll come to you. Let me get Prashant. Prashant, as far as the death penalty jurisprudence in this country, is that the problem actually? The inconsistency.
No, that is also a very serious problem. Take, apart from what Anup mentioned, that large number of those people who were initially convicted and given death penalty come to be acquitted eventually. A much larger percentage, their death penalty is thereafter converted into some other form of punishment by the appellate courts. So therefore it is all very uncertain. In the Parliament attack case itself, Afzal Guru was not held guilty of any violent act. He was only held guilty of conspiracy. and he could not have been given the death penalty normally. But the Supreme Court said that in order to satisfy the collective conscience of society, he must be given death penalty. That such a big incident has taken place, therefore somebody must be hanged. Same thing appears to have happened with Yaqub Memon. The evidence against him was essentially the confessions of co-accused made to police officers, which were later retracted. On that evidence, you don't give a person death penalty. But again, it seems that somebody had to be given death penalty, and therefore Yaqub was given the death penalty because it was viewed as such a serious incident.
Prashant, no, about what Anup said about personal predilection of judges at various levels, right from the trial stage right up to the apex stage. You think that is where that's also another problem? And this lack of this inconsistency is also because there is no set standards for what what should be. There are hundreds of provisions under which death penalty can be given.
No, exactly. This question of what is the rarest of rare case, this has been largely arbitrarily decided. Apart from that, there is clear evidence of bias even in the minds of judges while deciding who should be given death penalty, and that is reflected by the socio-religious composition of persons who have been given death penalty. Socio-economic, religious composition, etc.
Okay. Mr. Sahasrabudhe, how do you react to this? The inconsistency of the way in which it is awarded itself, isn't that a matter of concern? And that is where all these problems and controversies arise.
Well, there might be. Nobody is claiming that the judicially, I mean, the way the verdicts are given is very perfect and flawless, and nobody can question it. But to time and again, to cast aspersions, now there was a reference to socio-religious economic background. I believe it is totally irresponsible, because these kinds of judgments and similar kinds of judgments have been given, maybe a lesser form of penalty, have been given by the very judges. That time you don't say anything. Only for a particular case you are casting aspersions.
No, it's not a particular case.
Yeah, of course.
This socio-religious economic thing is part of the project.
I am listening for the first time today, and simply because the person that was given this penalty belongs to a particular community. This is not fair. I believe we are casting aspersions.
No, you are not.
I just want to make
Anup, you have to defend yourself. You have to defend yourself because this is your report.
I just want to make one thing very clear. I was only presenting what we have found in 2 years of field work, and I am not here saying why Yaqub Memon got the death penalty or why why he was executed. Right? I am not casting any aspersions on that. I am only presenting findings of our research as to there is a socio-economic profile which is in tune with global trends.
90% or something. Yes, Mr. Agarwal.
That's fine. I am not disputing that. My submission is that there is a bias. Infirmities in our judicial system. And they are there for everywhere, even for those who have been given life imprisonment or some other punishment. Do you think that every judgment has become, was delivered in a very flawless
the element
manner?
of bias which was talked about, Ashok Tandon, that is something which everybody talks about. Yeah. You know, with the bias, the element of bias in awarding these kind of things. Do you think that doesn't exist?
I don't think we should use the term bias for judiciary. I think it will be very unfair to the judiciary if you use the word unbiased or biased. See, the judiciary follows the law of the land, and the law of the land permits capital punishment. So it is for the legislator, the lawmakers, to debate on it. So I think that's why I said in the beginning, this debate should not take place when there is hanging around. And unfortunately, it wittingly or unwittingly casts a shadow on the judicial
that's
process.
okay. But but the larger issue of, you think that time has come for us to review the entire process of whether death penalty should continue or not?
It is already under review. In fact, Supreme Court has also discussing where to apply the rarest of the rare cases. Why can't we have confidence and faith in our judicial system? See, my argument is that, see, the problem is with our judicial process. It is so slow.
You're talking of judicial process. Yeah. I just want to quote to you a report of the a consultancy paper which was issued by the Law Commission of India. Law Commission of India, it says, the personal predilection of judges determine whether death penalty is given or not. This is what the Law Commission says in its consultancy paper before the thing.
Why should the Law Commission say the same thing about other punishments and other cases? I'm sorry, because see, why the argument...
Since we are talking of death penalty, I have only that. I'm sure Law Commission will say so many things about other things.
That's what I said at the beginning.
Yes.
If the death penalty has been a part of the evolutionary process of the societies, its abolition should also be evolutionary. You can't say from today onward there should not be.
I just want to clarify this question. I just want to clarify this issue of bias, right? I am not here sitting saying that when a judge sees a Dalit convict before him or her, he says, oh, this is a Dalit or a Muslim. And that is not the point, right?
Certainly not.
It is a structural issue.
Absolutely.
It is disparate impact.
Absolutely.
The death penalty
and
has
also
a disparate...
and there are many reasons
and
for that.
How does that work? Most people are poor, right?
They don't have
access to good legal
Absolutely.
counsel. And so it is not a question of me casting aspiration, some sort of thing on
Yes, Mr.
judges.
Agarwal, very quickly.
I was trying to add to this point.
Very quickly,
we
Mr.
should not see the judges to be biased in any manner, whether it is at the trial court or whether at any other stages of appeal. So, because judges are burdened with a lot of conviction level, that they cannot just give and hand over a judgment of death penalty just because he has a bias in his mind. So, judges has nothing to do with the bias at that stage. Secondly, what we are trying to say is that when this is an opportune time for us, when we have been discussing on Nirbhaya case, and we promptly came up with a lot of legislation to protect the women on road and women on street. So why don't we go take further step and legislate on this provision, whether we should apply our mind on a public opinion to be formed?
Okay, I think on that note, this is not an issue which can be decided in one debate, but as Mr. Tandon says that it's an evolutionary process. I'm sure this debate is also part of that evolutionary process. The work which Anup Surendranath and his people are doing is also part of the evolutionary process. So there will be more debates on this, whether death penalty is a deterrent or not. There, I don't think there is any kind of single opinion on that. There will be much more discussion on that. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture, same time tomorrow.